G'day and welcome back, my fellow degenerates. Now, a few days ago, we had the announcement of Path of Exile 2's first major update, the 0.2 update, Dawn of the Hunt. And with that, we got shown a whole lot of skills, and a lot of them were covered in the actual announcement, but a lot of them were kind of snuck in there or not fully explained. As well as some talked about in Jonathan's interview afterwards with Ziggy D. So in this one, I'm going to cover all of the skills and some of the supports and ascendancy stuff that we saw from the Dawn of the Hunt reveal, as well as just talk about some of my potential build or combo ideas. That'll be safe at the end though. So this patch came with 25 total new skills, 22 of which are linked directly into the Hunters, as well as 100 plus new supports to help builds all across the game, and 5 new ascendancy classes, 2 of which are for the Hunters and 3 for other classes altogether. Now first, I'm going to cover all the Huntress skills. And I want to start with the basics. And it should be noted that when I say Huntress, I mean spear skills because none of them are actually tied to the Huntress themselves. However, it's kind of the archetype that we've got going on, so that's how we go. Now the spear at base is going to come with a melee attack as well as a spear throw, and this is to really encourage that kind of melee and range behavior, because right from the start you've got to use both. And as a general rule, they're going to be making all the spear throw skills use frenzy charges to empower them in some way. However, we only know about one of them for explosive spears so far. We'll find out the rest as we get in and get to play. Then of course we have the standard pairing with the spear, which is the buckler, which grants parry. And parry itself is going to basically work like block, but automatically do a counter attack that weakens the enemy to incoming attacks for a short time. And now we'll move on to the first set of skills here, as they all kind of work in tandem with one another. We have Disengage, which does this backflip, that then if the enemy has recently been parried, it will also generate a shockwave as well as generate a frenzy charge for you. Then moving on to Whirling Slash, which creates a whirlwind as you spin your spear around, dealing damage, and then when you leave the area, it explodes, which is obviously fantastic, synergizing well with Disengage as you backflip out. The next skill, Twister, just does what you'd think, creates a little twister, but if you use it in the range of Whirling Slash, it will consume the Whirling Slash to create additional twisters. Then the last skill from the first row is Explosive Spear, which just stabs the spear into the ground so that after a short time it explodes. Now this has the Frenzy Charge empowerment I was talking about, where if you get a Frenzy Charge through the use of Disengage and Parry, you can cause this extra additional explosion that leaves burning ground. And now this is where some interactions come in, as Whirling Slash will absorb ground effects to cause an elemental damage of that type, which then the Twister follow-up can also do the same thing, which just becomes a really cool combo. And that's shown with all sorts of elements. It's not just the fire from the Explosive Spear. Obviously you'll just need a way to generate those ground effects. There's a few skills we only get a small amount of footage of. First being Primal Strikes, which is just there. And then ones that we saw a while ago, but less recently, we have the Lightning Spear, which looks a lot like Lightning Arrow with just chaining spears everywhere. And then Spearfield, which does apparently slow and bleed effects in quite a large area. Now it's kind of sad, but we don't really get to see what Fangs and Frost and Glacial Lance do. However, Glacial Lance has a icon of a different skill entirely. It looks very fiery there. But we get to move on to what I think is some of the coolest stuff that Spear has, which is the bleed-related things from Rake, Rapid Assault, and Bloodhound. So Rake is going to be causing enemies to have blood loss as well as bleed, which is shown on the health bar. And then Bloodhound is a dash that follows up, and the more blood loss they have, the bigger the explosion it does. Rapid Assault, on the other hand, is going to do a whole bunch of quick stabs, with the last stab leaving a spearhead in the enemy, which is going to cause them to bleed even more. This is probably a good spot to tie into the fact that in the interview with Ziggy D afterwards, Jonathan also mentioned we're getting a new Herald skill called Herald of Blood, which is going to cause the bleed explosions, which if any of you played PoE 1, very fun. Basically, bleeding enemies, when you kill them with attacks, going to explode. And then we also have this support gem that we're getting called Haemocrystals, and Haemocrystals is just going to allow you to support your skills to make them consume bleeds to create these explosive crystals. Should allow you to get a little burst of damage out of your damage over times, as well as, give it some AoE. So it should be really nice. And next we have Stormlance and Thunderous Leap. Stormlance is just going to throw spears that stick in the ground, zapping nearby enemies, and Thunderous Leap is going to make use of those spearheads you've left in enemies, as well as potentially Spearfield and Stormlance, to jump on the enemies, cause an explosion, and detonate all those spears. Very nice combination there. I am going to really quickly go over Barrage and Sniper's Mark, but we've seen them before. Barrage will be consuming all your frenzy charges to make your next spear throw skill, in this case, repeat additional times, which will be pretty nice. And Sniper's Mark just marks an enemy for critting them, dealing extra damage, and granting a frenzy charge. Then a really cool one we're getting is Tame Beast, which is going to allow you to get a rare beast as a companion, and it will keep all its modifiers, which could either be really hefty buffs to itself or even to nearby allies, potentially being really useful in both team play and minion builds. Now, there's a few more skills we don't get to see them, but we can probably guess what they are by what they're called and what their icons are. So we got Bloodhounds Mark, which is probably just a bleed-related mark skill. Hopefully something cool, because I want to use those. Whirlwind Lance looks like from the icon that it might stab into the ground and do a whirlwind of some kind. Don't know. And Elemental Sundering looks like it might be to do with ground effects, which will be very cool if you can synergize with the Whirling / Twister combos. But we'll have to see when we get there. Then we have Wind Serpent's Fury, which is very quickly we get to see it. It looks like it's consuming all the frenzy charges that you have to do a big, like, snakes out forwards, which is really cool. And then Spear of Solaris, which seems to have a pretty big wind-up, kind of like a Comet, but then does a massive beam. So hopefully those last two skills should be huge damage. But then we move on to the Summon Rhoa mount, which is just going to give you a little Rhoa companion that follows you around, but you'll be able to mount it for removing your movement speed penalty when using your ranged spear attacks or bow skills. With the one downside of, well, if you get hit too much, you'll get stunned and knocked off. But I consider this being really useful for speedrunners or in builds that are killing stuff fast enough that just removing the movement speed penalty while attacking is going to be beautiful. Then, of course, we have the fabled Spectres, which come back from PoE 1, but in a much better form. In PoE 1, you could basically just raise corpses as summons, and you were limited on the number. But you had to raise the corpse each time. It was an absolute pain. But in PoE 2 here, you'll be binding a gem to a particular minion type, and then you could just pick the number that you want and it'll revive automatically. The cool thing is the spirit cost is going to be based on the size or the power of the minion, and so they'll be really easy able to balance that. So you could either have like an army of small things or a few big things. And I think it's just really cool being able to like custom build your army like that, because yeah, there's so many build types, and I'm sure Gazzy's going to have way too much fun going through these. I know he has a massive list of this already. But I'm pretty pumped to actually make a minion build now, because I've been waiting for this. Then we're going to move on to some of the supports. And first up, we have Spectral Volley, which they didn't explain, but we do get a mouse over. And basically, all it's going to do is make your initial throw of skills deal less damage, but then it does a follow-up 3 seconds after you stop attacking, based on the number of times you used it. And that's going to do even more damage. And it should be noted that even though I kind of want to play the melee bleed stuff more, I think Spectral Volley could play into it quite well, because I could throw a few spears, dash in, and then the volleys follow up. Could be really cool. Then we got a bit of a weirder one, which is called Alignment, which is going to make so your bow skills are going to point in a direction, and you're going to have to attack in that direction for bonus damage. And could be powerful, but it feels like it might be a bit too annoying to play around. The next one, Caltrops, is going to scatter Caltrops everywhere, wherever your spear throw skills land. It could be really cool, especially with the fact it scales with dexterity. Might be able to do some interesting dex stacking builds with that. But then we've got Enormity to make your minions bigger at the cost of more spirit. Unsteady Tempo to give you various buffs after each attack, including hobbling you for a portion of your life, whatever that means. Profanity to consume corpses for more chaos damage would be excellent for Essence Drain. Retaliate to give you more damage based on your stun build-up. Good if you're blocking a lot. And Syzygy to give you crushing blows to heavy stun enemies that are both ignited and armor broken. And a crazy amount more supports, which we can, glean a few things from in this list. Now, I think that pretty much covers everything when it comes to the skills, at least. I'm just going to quickly talk about what I want to do. I think, personally, I'm going to go with trying out those bleed skills. As I mentioned, I think there's a lot of potential there for bleed to actually be really good for once, which is cool. I really like the ideas of the melee side of spears with the bleed. And I think because of that, I'm going to go with the Herald of Blood, and I'm going to play the Ritualist, because I think the Ritualist is just going to fit a lot better for that. Having the Blood Boil is going to be really nice, and some of the kind of more universal things compared to the Amazon, which has more focus on throwing and elemental things. Which, you know, if I'm doing bleed, not going to need those. Amazon does seem pretty solid. Looks like there's some good potential there. But yeah, I think Ritualist melee spears is the way to go. I might be tempted to even play hardcore, but we'll have to see. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for now. Thank you for watching. I actually put slightly more effort into this video, so I hope to see you all hopefully on Twitch on the day. Let me know if I should do hardcore, because definitely something I'm tempted to do. And yeah, pretty pumped. So, I'll see you all in the next video, which will probably be more in-depth about Ascendancies, if anyone wants that. Otherwise, I shall see you guys on Friday when Dawn of the Hunt launches. Peace out.